It's just a social construct. Those are damning words. Those are words that suggest that whatever has just been offered is not to be taken seriously, is merely a matter of opinion. Scientific knowledge is extremely valuable knowledge. It has done great things for humanity. But scientific knowledge has to be constructed carefully, and it's constructed by very many people in very many institutions and through many kinds of practice. I'm here in a university where we contribute to the construction of scientific knowledge. And once constructed, such knowledge also needs to be maintained. That includes, for example, training people to respect and spread and improve the boundaries and distinctions that we have drawn. This essential characteristic of scientific knowledge, that it is constructed, socially constructed, is widely misunderstood. The bottom line is this: the word construct is not a dirty word, and it doesn't mean unreal. Scientific facts may be constructed well or poorly. There is no scientific fact that is not constructed. Some social constructs include, let's just take a few examples: the Second World War, oxygen, diabetes, and poverty. I'm sure we could all agree that all of those are real. Are they constructs? Well, yes, they are constructs. They're social constructs. The Second World War is quite obviously a social construct as well as being very real. If you're from the UK or from Ireland, for example, we'll use the phrase World War II to refer to something that happened between 1939 and 1945. If you're from China, from Russia, or the USA, you would use possibly a different name. In China and Russia, certainly. You would use different dates, and it would fit very differently into any historical account you might choose to give. So in order to use the term Second World War, a certain amount of framing is necessary. And that works within a certain cultural framing. When we claim the reality of any entity like the Second World War, we're using language to pick it out, and we can't separate our use of language from our claims about existence. They're inseparable. This does not make the things we're talking about unreal. In the same way, oxygen is a social construct and also real. In order to refer felicitously to oxygen, we have to be able to distinguish it from other things, including other elements like hydrogen and helium, mere mixtures, compounds, even things that we're less likely these days to confuse with oxygen, like ghosts. In order to identify oxygen, we need to construct verified experimental methods. We need an atomic theory, and we need an account of elemental structure. We need a whole conceptual framework in which oxygen can mean something, and that is necessarily achieved socially. Before all that work has been done, the word oxygen is literally meaningless. There's no point in going back and trying to wield the word oxygen in ancient Greece. It won't work. Diabetes is clearly a social construct and also real. Anytime we invoke the term diabetes, we're relying among our interlocutors on a shared understanding of such complex and heavily contested constructs like medicine, nutrition, and health. To use the term diabetes is to invoke a world of medical practice and understanding that has a specific contingent history. And medical practice could have drawn boundaries otherwise, and this is always a work in revision. So the boundary between sickness and health, the boundary between the normal and the deviant, the partitioning of responsibility to choices, habits, drives, culture, peer pressure. These are all culture-bound, contingent, as we discuss, debate diabetes. So we sharpen these boundaries and bring diabetes to the fore, distinguished from other things. Perhaps it's most obvious that poverty is a social construct. Poverty is obviously very real, but there might be a greater awareness here that the way in which we define it, the way that we delineate the phenomenon, is going to affect what gets picked out by that phenomenon. And such definitional work underscores agreements, laws, regulations. Poverty can be constructed with reference to monetary income, but also with reference to occupational choices, to the opportunity to participate in social institution, ownership rights, access to water, healthcare, food, dignity of the person, personal security. Any and all of these might be used in a particular definition of poverty. And as the practices and variables so employed are constructed, selected, and implemented, so too the boundaries of poverty change, and poverty becomes something we can talk about, something we can address, and something we can even strive to fix. So the fact that it's socially constructed does not make it in any way unreal. When you do science, you're contributing to the construction of the human world. That makes you responsible for your work. This responsibility is unavoidable. If we adopt one definition, say, of poverty, then that changes the life world of many people. And if we adopt a definition, that has different effects. So every time we define and pick out something, it now becomes something that influences our practices. In this way, facts become political very, very quickly. Scientific research is necessarily constructive, and as it is constructed, so reality itself changes. It's a widespread misconception that facts are simply there to be read off the world. That is not the case. All scientific knowledge is constructed because we have curated and agreed over centuries on standards, on procedures, on limits, on distinctions, and much more besides. If scientists believe that they are merely describing a pre-existing reality, they fail to see that they are also contributing to the construction thereof, they become dangerous. Now, some may like to think that this kind of problem belongs to the social sciences being notoriously soft and lacking strong definitions. To the extent that the science we're talking about affects human lives in any way whatsoever, however, all these considerations apply. And that includes the way that we construct matter, time, space, health, nature, the human, the atom, death, and of course reality itself. Now there's room for an awful lot more to be said about the current fad of data science. Data science is an enormously popular field, relatively young, and there's a great deal of naivety with respect to the practices of science in the field. Data are not pre-existing. They don't lie out there in great droves in the field, simply waiting for an expert to come along and read them or visualize them or interpret them. A rather obvious and drastic example of how the practices of data collection and aggregation impact and change human lives is given by the proposed Chinese social credit system. But even the humble little Fitbit that banks might give out for free, for example, not only records but also changes in its critique, in its behavioral nudges and the encouragements it gives. It changes human life, it changes reality itself. Now, public discourse often acts as if there were simply objective facts which were completely, clearly distinct from subjective feelings and opinions, and the job of science was to collect and describe these pre-existing facts. This is a mistake. It's a mistake with serious consequences. It abdicates responsibility for the construction of the human world, including the production and maintenance of scientific knowledge. Objectivity is a scientific goal, but it's one we strive for, we work towards. It takes a lot of work, ongoing work, to create objective